Why, yes, this one is literally a conspiracy, a scheme between Democrats for some harmful purpose. The Democrats are actually spending money to prop up Trump loyalist candidates, something we've known about for several weeks now. And their idea is that if they can fund the people they claim are destroying this country, they will easily defeat them come November. It's insane and it's outright evil. Here's what they're doing. Insider reports that Democrats spent over $1 million to boost Dan Cox, the Trump loyalist and 2020 election denier who just won the GOP primary for Maryland governor. Democrats think with him as the nominee, when it comes to the general election for the gubernatorial race in Maryland, they'll win. Then they go on the January 6th committee and say it's people like this that are destroying this country. They are funding it. The Democrats are funding what they claim is destroying this country. Right there, right in front of you. Insider, businessinsider.com. Fact. So for all the people that have said this, I'll say it outright. First and foremost, everybody who says Trump and all these people are bad, fine. Explain why Democrats are funding them. Do you think that if Dan Cox loses the gubernatorial race in Maryland, he ceases to exist? No. You have given him substantial power. Now, if you have friends and family who think these people are wrong, at the very least, you can say, okay, then why are Democrats funding it? Why are Democrats funding these individuals? Now, I can say this. Previously, I said it backfired. It backfired because they tried propping up a dude in Colorado and he didn't win. So they dump all of this money into a race to get the guy they view as being extremist to win. He doesn't win. All they did was raise his profile and set the tone of conversation in a direction they claim is wrong. Well, now they actually helped get Dan Cox the victory. We will see in the general election if the Democrats' plan actually works. And I think the whole thing is just downright dirty. They know they can't win, so they're playing dirty games. They have done polling, and they have found that American people don't like MAGA. That's what they believe. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'm willing to bet that because the economy is so bad, because gas prices are so high, that people would vote for a ham sandwich if it had an R next to it, because the Democrats have run this country to the ground. So when they fund the Trump-supporting, Trump loyalists, claiming it's the end of democracy or whatever, I think people are going to vote for these candidates no matter what. I don't think they care. I think Donald Trump could come out and make his whole speech about shooting someone on Fifth Avenue and people would be like, at this point, if it gets gas prices down, yeah, maybe. It's just so dirty and so filthy. Well, right now we've got polling coming out showing we get it. Joe Biden, nobody likes the guy. His polling is in the gutter. The American people think that he's not paying attention to what he needs to pay attention to. He's giving our oil away. Diesel prices, shortages, it's all bad. And now we've got one individual speaking to CNN saying Joe Biden's going to continually hinder fossil fuels. So when you look at what's happening, even on CNN, Joe Biden is gutting this country. So fund anyone you want. The Democrats could prop up literal ham sandwich, and I'm going to vote for it. And I'll tell you another reason why. There is nothing that will get me to support any Democrat because they actively have supported sex change operations for children, period. So when a Republican comes out and says we're not for that, but we want to lower taxes, I go, oh, I guess. Because what's the alternative? Vote for those people? Never going to happen. I mean, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking about it that way. Like the Republicans could be funding all of those Democrats, I guess, because regular people would say no to it. It's a ridiculous scheme. And I think it's disgusting and it's dirty. But you know what? Fine. Trump supporters are probably cheering now that their guy won thanks to Democrats spending the money to help him out. Let's read the story. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work, but also to watch our new shows. Tales from the Inverted World, a Timcast exclusive with a new hour-long episode, Season 1, Episode 3, The House of Seven Ghosts. Shane Cashman went down to Georgia to try and find the lost Confederate gold. What he found was something substantially crazier. Mysteries, UFOs, witches. Someone threatened to kill him. We've made this really great audio-visual experience The episodes are 40 minutes to an hour long. And if you want to watch the show, check it out at timcast.com. But you're also going to get access to the Timcast IRL Uncensored After Hours show. You'll be supporting our journalists, and we have dumped PayPal off the site. If you want to be a member, you will now use Parallel Economy. Dan Bongino is affiliated with one of the co-founders of this anti-censorship payment processor. We are putting our money where our mouth is as we expand and build our own streaming video company. In 5 years, people won't be talking about signing up for Disney Plus. They'll be saying, you check out that latest episode of Tales from the Inverted World over at timcast.com. So good. With your support, we're going to displace the woke companies who hate you. Stop giving your money to people who hate you. To quote Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire, you can give it to those who are fighting to make that difference. Timcast.com is. We're not perfect. We're certainly opposed to all of that woke garbage. And so check out Tales from the Inverted World, but don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video if you really want to support us. Here's the story from Business Insider. Democrats spend over $1 million to boost Dan Cox, the Trump loyalist and 2020 election denier who just won the GOP primary for Maryland governor. They say the Democratic Governors Association funneled $1.16 million into TV ads for Cox, betting that the far-right candidate would be easier for the state's Democratic candidate to beat, the New York Times reported. In an ad paid for by the DGA, the group calls Cox Trump's hand-picked candidate, says he's 100% pro-life and will protect Second Amendment rights at all costs. Messages that likely resonated with Trump loyalists in the state. Now, the ad tries to feign being negative, but you wouldn't say someone's going to protect 2A in a negative ad. You would say something like he supports, rescinding gun restrictions, which could lead to more violence or something like that. No, they come out and they're like, he would protect the Second Amendment at all costs. Yeah, that's a pro-Republican ad right there. I like the idea that he would. That'd be great. Hey, Dan, fix this state. We're planning on getting out of here for the most part. In a statement to Insider, a DGA spokesperson said Cox's win reaffirms it was the right choice to run the ads and hold him accountable for his radical MAGA stances. What? That's not what you did. You gave him free money. The Democrats are giving Trump candidates free money. Whatever. And will continue to use the same message to defeat Cox and his dangerous agenda in November. The state's outgoing Republican governor, Larry Hogan, has been outspoken about his disdain for Trump. And blamed him for what he sees as a sure loss for the Republicans in Maryland. Trump lost Republicans the White House, the House, and the Senate, Hogan, a potential 2024 presidential candidate, tweeted July 20th. He selfishly colluded with the National Democrats to cost us a governor's seat in Maryland, where I ran 45 points ahead of him. He's fighting for his ego. We're fighting to win. And the fight goes on. 45 points ahead? That doesn't sound right. Spokesperson for Hogan told Baltimore Banner reporter Pamela Wood that Hogan won't be voting for Cox in the general election. The Times reported that Cox also chartered 3 buses from Maryland to D.C. for the January 6, 2021 Stop the Steal rally, the Times reported. He has also said Biden was installed in the White House and baselessly claimed voter fraud occurred in his home, Frederick County, Maryland, the Times reported. I don't live in Frederick County. I actually live in West Virginia. But we do work out of, and I own property in Maryland, in Washington County. So not that district. Fine. I'd be really interested to see what he had to say about Frederick. I go there to eat like all the time. Frederick is like 10 minutes away. Kelly Schultz, the GOP candidate endorsed by Hogan, called out the DGA's funding of Cox earlier this month, the Washington Post reported. The math is easy. Spend $1 million now and save $5 million by not having to face me in the general election, Schultz told the Post. She called Cox a lying conspiracy theorist who is a danger to our party and our state. Yeah, I don't know if I care, Kelly. I don't. I may not agree with Cox on a lot of issues, but I genuinely don't believe you would do right by this state or by the American people anyway. And you know what that means? I really don't agree with Cox on a lot of the things he said, but I'll take 2A. That's it. You come to me with your rhino garbage. You come to me with your Democrat uniparty garbage. And I'm just going to say, don't know, don't care, not going to vote. You come to me, Dan Cox, and you say, we'll protect the Second Amendment. And then a bunch of other things, I'll be like, I'll take what I can get. Granted, I don't vote here, so, it is what it is. although many of my employees do. We'll see how that plays out. The DGA has used this strategy in other states, too. Darren Bailey, another Trump-backed far-right gubernatorial candidate, secured a spot as Illinois' Republican candidate in June. The DGA ran an ad about Bailey with some of the same talking points as Cox's ad, the Chicago Tribune reported. Can I just point out when he says he's pro-life and would defend the Second Amendment? Those are popular positions. You see, the Democrats spend so much time wrapped up in their psycho bubble, they don't realize those are popular. What's that? I could already hear the left being like, Tim's so wrong. Most Americans are pro-choice. Did you read the polls? Because you're wrong. Most Americans support some restrictions, and their view of pro-choice is not what Democrats are offering. Now, are the Republicans smart enough to play a similar game? I don't think so. I'd laugh if it happened. I'm not a fan of this dirty politics. Republicans start paying for far left candidates so that, whatever. Maybe they've done something like that in the past. I've not seen it. Jonathan Swan noted this. He's a journalist over at Axios, I believe. We're going to get the, I'm pretty sure he's at Axios. The Democratic Governors Association funded Trump ally Dan Cox with ads supporting his candidacy. They succeeded, as they have in other races, helping stop the steal Republicans. Now comes the pivot to Democrats' fall message. These candidates are threats to American democracy. By the transitive property, my friends, Democrats themselves are funding the threat to American democracy. Therefore, they are also a threat to American democracy. Michael Tracy points out, D.C. Dems spent $2 million boosting Maryland GOP governor candidate Dan Cox, a Jan 6 organizer, because they figured it'd be easier to beat. Cox just won the primary. Either way, he'll be hugely elevated in stature, which January 6th obsessed Dems are always telling us is so dangerous. If these Democrats really believed their own rhetoric about the calamitous existential threat of January 6th, they would be spending millions of dollars. Would they be spending millions of dollars to elevate GOP candidates whom they claim pose such a profound danger? Almost like they don't believe their own rhetoric. A similar strategy was also executed in Pennsylvania, among other states. Dems spend big money to boost the very insurrectionist Republicans they claim are such scary threats. Something to bear in mind during the next January 6th related meltdown the Dems inevitably contrive. It's quite simple, my friends. At the very least, the bare minimum, if Cox loses in the general, they have still helped him gain tremendous prominence. The Democrats consistently have said they are willing to burn this country down for short-term gains. Most people don't actually care about a lot of these issues. Most people don't care about January 6th. Democrat hardcore activists do, and maybe they're hoping they'll light them up and get them to go vote. Maybe. I think regular people aren't paying attention to that stuff, and they're just like, why is gas expensive? But this strategy has failed in the past. The Colorado Sun says why the millions of dollars Democrats spend in Colorado's Republican primaries didn't work. All of the more extreme GOP candidates Democrats wanted to see win on Tuesday lost, most of them by significant margins. So I don't want to say it's backfired just yet. We'll see what happens in the general. I think it's fair to say at this point, this part of it already backfired. They put a bunch of money into the more extreme GOP candidates who lost. So all they did was prop up Trump supporters and give them prominence, give them political influence. That ain't helping you, dude. Those people will use that influence in ways the Democrats don't like. But that's the story of Democrats, right? Remember when Harry Reid nuked the filibuster and then all of a sudden Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court justices installed and then Roe v. Wade got overturned? Hey, how about that over the span of 10 years? As Democrats talking about doing away with the filibuster, the Republicans lick their lips and slap their hands together. Looking forward to November when they win and then come January 3rd, steamroll everything. The Democrats can't seem to think long term. Well, here's the reality. From the Daily Caller. New CNN poll might be the most glaring indictment of Biden and Democrats yet. Yeah. Americans questioned President Joe Biden's priorities in new CNN polling released Monday that highlighted widespread displeasure with the direction the country is heading. The latest CNN poll showed that 68% of U.S. adults believed Biden's priorities are wrong, and the president hasn't paid enough attention to critical issues facing Americans, like the economy and inflation. This is up 10% from November 2021, when the data was tracked according to the poll. Okay. From timcast.com. Soaring diesel prices put pressure on truckers, farmers, consumers. The tight diesel supply could send the average price to $10 per gallon by the end of summer. Do you know what that would mean for the cost of goods? Tripling. What it would mean for your food. What it would mean for even the availability of goods. You're not going to be able to get some things because they won't be able to transport them. But let's put it this way. Maybe it will just be more expensive food. Okay. But maybe what may happen is the cost of transporting strawberries in the winter exceeds the amount they could reasonably sell them for. And so what happens is you go to the grocery store, there ain't none. And you shouldn't be eating out of season fruits anyway, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of that. Strawberries in the winter, it means they come from very far away. But the truckers are going to be like, look, the cost of gas, how fast we got to get strawberries to the store because they go bad. We're going to have to sell these things for like $20 a little cart. Nobody's going to want to buy that. So we just decided it's not worth it. During the COVID lockdown, there's a barbecue joint not too far away from me. They just stopped selling brisket. I wanted a brisket sandwich. I wanted that slow cooked sweet brisket so good. And I went up and I said, I'll have a brisket, sir. And they said, we don't have any. And then I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll have the chicken. And I was like, how come no brisket? You're a barbecue stop. And they said, the cost of beef has gone up so high, we would have to sell it for like $20 or $30 a sandwich in order to make money off it. No one's going to spend that, and we don't want to waste the money on the expensive beef. So we decided not to sell it. And I was like, you ain't wrong about that. Chicken was $10. I'm not spending $30 on a sandwich. Just go home and make a PBJ or something. So they said, no beef. That's what we may be looking at. Now, I don't know exactly how it'll play out, but this is what we may be looking at. Take a look at this level chart. The cost of diesel fuel on July 19th was $5.52 per gallon, up 68% from just a year ago. The highest recorded average price for a gallon of diesel was $5.81, round up to 82, June 2022, according to AAA. Quote, people pay less attention to diesel prices because people aren't going to the pump and using it. I mean, we do because we have a truck we use for materials and it's diesel. Says Matt Smith, lead oil analyst at Kipler, a research firm. He told the AP. But diesel has a far more reaching impact and is already having a real big impact across the economy. Unless prices are reduced, high diesel costs could worsen the supply chain and inflation issues the U.S. is seeing. As many trucking companies are declining jobs unless their customers are willing to pay more for the increase in fuel. It breaks my heart because I have to say, no, I can't afford to. Or I can, but you're going to have to pay some of my fuel to get me there, said Deb Labrie, a long-haul trucker who delivers pharmaceuticals. In order to mitigate high fuel costs, Labrie tries to minimize driving an empty truck between deliveries to customers. If the client cannot pay the higher cost for diesel, she simply turns the job down. There will be more logistical shortages, says Phil Verliger, a longtime energy economist. Americans will find more empty shelves and higher prices. Quote, a lot of truckers just won't be able to operate, he said. If you're a farmer, you may have to leave some acres fallow or won't fertilize as much. The macroeconomists don't get this. It's going to come back and haunt us all. Food shortages, fuel shortages, hungry people, a lack of goods, a lack of medicine. When all of that hits and smacks you in the face in the next month or two, I assure you, Dan Cox could take a dump on the stage and then laugh and say, I'll do the economy better. They'd still vote for him. I'm not going to say what Trump said. I'll be a little bit more crude. But you will be hard-pressed to find someone who's got a Republican next to their name who could lose. Now, I don't know. I'm not a psychic. I just believe it's reasonable to suggest that with all the problems we're seeing from the Democratic Party, or I should say those who have power now failing, people are just going to be like, don't care, Republican. Boom, I'm out. So maybe you get some Republican candidate who gets up on stage at the debate and just takes a big old dump on stage in front of everybody and then laughs and says, that right there is a better economic plan than my Democratic rival. What's going to happen is, some people are probably going to be like, yo, I don't want to vote for that guy. And then everyone else walks into the voting booth and says, not the Democrat. And they don't even know anything about the Republican. They will just say, things are really bad under the Democrats. I'm voting Republican. Boom, there it is. And the point I'm making here is, Democrats think by propping up Dan Cox, it's going to hurt him. No, he's going to he might win by default just because people hate you. Let me drive it home. Talking about the fuel surges, the fuel shortages, the food shortages, and ladies and gentlemen, I give you, from the Daily Mail, Biden to warn Congress that if lawmakers don't act on climate change, then he will during Massachusetts' trip to highlight the wind industry after Joe Manchin torpedoes his green agenda. Uh-oh. Joe Biden, to an already crippled fuel economy, is saying, I'm going to make it worse. So, yeah, you think people are going to vote for this? Maybe. Maybe people just don't read the news. But maybe enough people don't need to, because they will feel it, whether they want to or not. They say the ultimatum will come during the president's trip to Massachusetts, where he will visit Brayton Point Power Station, New England's largest coal plant, which is being transformed into a factory producing cables for offshore wind farms. The president will make clear tomorrow that climate change is an existential threat to our nation and to the world. And he will also make clear that since Congress is not going to act on this emergency, then he will. In the coming days, he will continue to announce executive actions that we have developed to combat this emergency. Biden's threat comes after Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia torpedoed the president's green agenda on Capitol Hill when he said he could not support billions of dollars in new climate spending as part of a larger economic package. Well, there you go, baby. Biden has vowed to use his executive powers since Manchin, who represents a state with a major coal industry, made his intentions clear. Quote, the climate emergency is not going to happen tomorrow, but we still have it on the table, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said at Tuesday's daily press briefing. I don't have a date circled in the calendar, but the president will announce federal funds to help heat-ravaged communities in his remarks. He'll announce new initiatives to bolster the domestic offshore wind industry. Last week, Biden said he would start taking executive action on climate issues after the talks between Manchin and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer came to a standstill. There's a viral post going around where they're like, a wind turbine was damaged and spilled oil all over the place. And everyone was like, what? How did a wind turbine spill oil? And then people are like, dude, they have to lubricate it, man. They've got oil in those things. Now, of course, it takes less oil to spin because it's spinning because of the wind, right? They still use oil. So maybe it is more energy efficient, producing less emissions. They don't burn the oil. They use it as a lubricant for the most part. But many people were surprised to see it. This is where we're headed, my friends. In this clip from RNC Research, Biden climate advisor Gina McCarthy says Biden will, quote, move forward with every power available to him to get rid of fossil fuels. Okay. Well, we've been over this before. Reasonable estimates suggest that if fossil fuels are ended, you get 60 million deaths overnight or somewhere around that number. I'm not an environmentalist or an energy economist or whatever, but I was reading about it and that's what they expect. If you ended it right now, just outright. And the reason is heat stroke deaths, people's insulin would go bad, power shortages, outages, all of that stuff, hospitals, very bad. Some have argued that over the span of a few years without oil, you see 1 billion deaths. And, well, Bill Gates is probably happy about that because they're mostly in Africa. Bill Gates has issued statements about how poverty is growing rapidly in Africa, so we need to stop them from having kids. And it's like, wow, you don't like these people because they're poor. And it's kind of a crazy thought. Look, I think overpopulation is an issue. I think expanding population density is an issue. I don't know if I would ever go so far as to be like in this region of that race. That's kind of like, dude, come on, calm down. I suppose, though, if you're a wealthy elitist, you probably look at impoverished communities with disdain. Those people don't produce computers for your company. No, I think people are people. So the idea of this culling or whatever among the poor is horrifying. I will say, though, there are many people who point out it is the survival of the fittest. That just means people in the U.S., I guess, people in Europe, and it means that people in South America, people in Africa, people in parts of the Middle East, yeah, those people are likely going to die first in the event that there's a major famine. With Ukraine not producing as much food, with Russia not producing as much food, with Russia not getting out fertilizer, that's the direction we're headed in. I don't know what to tell you, man. EU natural gas. Take a look at this one. Usually trading around 25 euros since 2010. It's now at 154 euro. Complete disaster coming in. No matter if Nord Stream 1 comes back online, in my honest opinion. I hope you're ready for what's to come. I don't know how bad it would get. It might not get that bad relative to how we live in America. It may just mean that your gas is really expensive and it sucks for a while. But what I mean is you're not going to starve to death. Some people might. I think most Americans will probably just complain about having expensive gas. That's the reality for America. Europe is probably going to be reeling from this too. There'll probably be a lot of rioting. But in countries like Turkey and Lebanon, in Africa, people there are going to starve. They're going to starve. Sri Lanka is already imploding. And we're going to see more of that. If Biden brings those policies to the U.S., it's going to be Mad Max. Look, if people can't get food, they'll find food. No one's going to roll over and die. If a man can't feed his child, he's not going to let his child starve. He's going to find food however he has to. So what are the Democrats focused on? Democrats propping up Trump supporting candidates because they know they can't win. But I tell you this, I don't think when someone looks at a MAGA candidate and a Democrat, they think negative things. The Democrats seem to think that by propping up Dan Cox, they're going to get more votes. Like maybe they were like, hey, look, people hated Trump, so we won there. How is that going to matter when Joe Biden has failed this country and Democrats are gutting it? Yeah, it won't. Someone's going to walk over and be like, I don't care what you believe about Trump or 2020. Tell me you'll get the gas prices down. And it'll happen. And here's the best part. From Pointer. Most Republicans still falsely believe Trump's stolen election claims. Here are some reasons why. In poll after poll, about 70% of Republicans say they don't think Joe Biden is the legitimate winner of the 2020 election. It's amazing. So they're propping up people that Republicans will vote for anyway. And they're propping up people who represent Trump. When Trump brought us the best numbers of our lives in 2019. It's just downright crazy if you were to ask me. Now, I don't know if that will translate. In this article at 6 months old, they say more than 40% of the U.S. do not believe Biden legitimately won. Now, that's crazy. Trump said something around half the country. And it's like, okay, that is around half. I don't know exactly what he said, but 40% just shy of half. That's crazy to me. Axios Momentive poll also finds majority of Americans fear repeat of Capitol attack in next few years. Yeah, but this time it'll be the far left. When Donald Trump wins, you think that the far left is going to sit back and do nothing? They tried storming the White House. There wasn't even an election going on. The Gravel Institute tweeted that they thought what happened on January 6th, in their minds, they thought it was good. The only problem they had with it was the wrong people doing it. So Gravel outright advocated for the far left to stage an insurrection. Do you think they will not do that? I mean, they've already done it over and over and over and over again. 2024 comes. Donald Trump is running. He's leading and he wins. The Republicans control everything. The House, the Senate, Supreme Court, and now the presidency. Do you think that Antifa and BLM are just going to sit back and be like, we'll get him next time? Or do you think it will get really bad? The gloves are off now, and it's going to be different. I ask people, why didn't they know about the 529 insurrection? They say, I don't know what that is. I say, yeah, why? Why is that? Why is it that you don't know that far leftists tore down the barricades of the White House, set fire to St. John's Church, torched a White House guard tower, injured dozens of officers, and forced the president into a bunker? Why didn't you know that? And they go, oh, wow, I had no idea. That excuse is not going to work in 2024. The far left won't care, and the right already knows. So if the far left were to engage in any kind of insurrection, they probably will, then what? You think the media is going to come out and be like, it's the police's fault? How could this have happened again? I mean, they probably will. But the regular Americans are going to be like, nope, not playing it. Not playing that game. The Democrats tried claiming that Trump stole the election with the help of Russia. It's quite amazing to say that, right? The Mueller probe proved that Donald Trump didn't collude with them. But they still try and push those insane narratives. Now, I think it's fair to say that Russia did try to interfere in the U.S. election. Sure. But my understanding is from the reports, it was negligible. They barely spent anything and barely did anything. What really made it work for Trump is meme magic. Yes, right. Memes independent commentary, people like Alex Jones. So they've been purging that. They can't let it happen again. The cat's out of the bag. You can't stop it. You can't. You know, they try to smear me because I am the milquetoast moderate. Yet here I am saying, like, there's a reason to vote for Trump. Personally, I like DeSantis substantially better. But Trump is the bull. DeSantis is a leader. Trump is a bull. He's going to storm in, romp about, and just wreak havoc. Good in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's the right thing for this country moving forward. If I could trust that DeSantis would drain the swamp, now that Trump has exposed many of the swamp monsters, and that he would do right by the culture war and he had good foreign policy, I'd say hands down, why vote for anybody else? So we'll see. We will see. These woke, cringe and establishment Democrats are trying to smear DeSantis as worse than Trump. I'm like, oh, please. One of these guys wrote an article and he was like, Ron DeSantis is more skillful and articulate than Trump. That makes him more dangerous. Oh, right. The dude's got military experience. The dude he was in Congress. Now he's a governor. He helped out Florida's economy. He saved Florida during the lockdowns. Dude has proven he can lead effectively. Donald Trump did great things as well. But, come on, man. You know the kind of guy Trump is. They try and tell him, like, here's the brief on what's happening. And I don't want to hear it. You read it and tell me about it later. And it's like, oh, come on, man. You got to pay attention to this stuff. Now, I will say, I don't know if I trust the media when they write those stories anyway. Donald Trump seems to care a whole lot. He seriously does. I think he's a blowhard. I think he's arrogant. And I think the media lied about him left and right. And because they did, I don't trust them anymore. So I'd rather have Trump than Biden, hands down. That was true in 2020. It's true now, and it'll be true when the next election happens. But maybe it won't even be Joe Biden. Who knows? Here's what I think we're going to see. I think Democrats' plan to fund Trump Republicans isn't going to do what they think it's going to do. And the Trump Republicans are going to gain prominence and even start winning. Then the Democrats are going to lose and be like, but the far right. And you're going to be like, I think you overestimated people's issues with the quote unquote far right, and you made it happen. They are hypocrites. They are evil, and their schemes are being exposed. A literal conspiracy. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.